You asked that question before. I can't remember who had asked it about technology. I think you.
Yeah, it was Brandon. Yeah.
Technology and how it's changed. The trucks themselves have changed a whole heck of a lot. You know, you're talking about Peterbilt back then. I mean, these are powerhouse pieces of equipment. You get into a modern, 2025, 2024, they've got a digital dash.
Yeah.
It's all a computer. And there's certain aspects of like the DEF system, so the diesel exhaust fluid.
Oh yeah, you guys have to worry about that too.
Oh yeah.
Everything diesel now.
Hey, the U.S. government can fuck up everything. They fucked up the gas.
Well, and I tell you, I have only a few times ever had issues to the point where I couldn't do
Are you guys
what I
deleting?
needed to do.
Are you guys deleting, or you can't say?
Well, no. The company that I work for, no. They're trying to be. Everyone's compliant to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
There are some companies that might consider.
Yeah.
But no.
Okay. Gotcha.
And
Oh, so we don't see a plume of black smoke coming out of your exhaust whenever you hit the gas really, really good.
you shouldn't have to see that.
Good. Look here. That makes me so happy when I see that, though. I'm like, oh, yeah, they got the leak kits on that right there.
Like that truck that I had at the showcase that you went to and you were judging, that actually had a pre-emissions cat in it. So that was completely legal.
Yes,
You know?
exactly. Because of the age of the truck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So the actual housing, the truck itself, the cab, and all of that.
Yeah.
That was a 2015, but the motor itself,
Yeah.
free.
Boom.
So they were able to use, put the two together and mesh and make this beautiful piece of equipment.
Yes, exactly.
But when it comes down to it, I think in this stage, I really like my Peterbilt. I did drive a Freightliner at one time. Actually, I have a story for you.
Yes. Look here. We have time. We have time. So just let it flow.
So I drove a Freightliner, and I don't know if you've heard the nickname for those trucks. Some people call them freight shakers. Right?
Yeah.
I've heard worse things.
So
They're
freight
too
shakers.
fragile.
And I had taken this truck. I drove that truck for about a year and a half. Well, when I first got into it, it was a hard pulling truck. Motor was good. It was. I felt like there was absolutely no storage in the back. There was just a bunk. That was it. And I was happy with that because I was still learning the road and learning what I wanted to keep with me.
Mm-hmm.
But it started. The rattling was really something I didn't know wasn't necessarily normal.
Right.
When it came to being in my first truck.
Okay, but was it always rattling, or did you just notice rattling the longer you drove the truck?
So, no, the Dalton Highway is rough.
Oh, okay.
It is so rough. I mean, between the ice...
Washboard.
Between the ice heaves, the washboarding, the potholes, the mud, it is bad.
Mm-hmm.
It is rough. And so when I first hopped in this truck, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And it wasn't until later when I got into something that didn't do that, and I was like, oh, I can hear myself think,
Got you.
But when I first got in this truck, I spent it was about a month, and that's when the plastic had started rubbing so much that even though it was brown, brown plastic on the the dash and above the panels and along the door frame, it was rubbing so much that it was creating this white powder.
Right.
And I looked at that, and it was coming out of the one spot over on the passenger side.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, what is this? Where is this coming from? Now I'm with a person who is absolutely cruel. Someday I'm going to punch this person. But he said to me, he's like, well, the guy before you, he was big into drugs, possibly. And so I'm freaking out because here's this white powder coming from the dash.
Oops.
Head of his truck.
Oops.
And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, he left a stash in there.
Oops.
It's coming down. It's hitting the defrost. I panicked, and I went to my boss, and he took a little bit, put it up to his nose, touched it with his tongue.
Ow.
And he's like, Tiffany, this is plastic.
Oh, he
And I
touched it with his tongue.
He had to taste it because he knew what it was. But he looked at me and he's like, for those who don't know me or haven't seen any of my content, I am a natural blonde, blue-eyed female. And in that moment, I called that my brunette moment. Because
That's hilarious.
Because when he looked at me and he goes, "This is just plastic. It's a freight shaker." And I go, "Oh, light bulb, like, oh.
Boom.
Oh, okay."
Boom.
So when you're asking about trucks, Freightliners aren't necessarily my favorite.
Wow.
Western Stars, they're big. They've got a lot of rattle too, what I've been told. I do like my Peterbilts. I think the biggest question that should be asked, though, is what color motor do you like?
Blue.
Blue. So you've got
yellow.
Yellow's a Cat, red would be a Cummins, black would be a Detroit or a
Okay.
Packard.
Okay, so I don't know
See.
my diesel engines then for
So-
big rigs.
Yeah, so I like personally. I know there are a lot of Cat people out there, but I like my Jakes to be powerful and strong. So I like my red motor. I like the Cummins.
Boom.
So
Exactly.
you,
Go Cummins.
yes,
Yes, sir. Look here, I
Yeah.
drive a Ram, so I'm all about that Cummins.
I was gonna say, you'll see his big red truck out there.
yeah.
Yeah. The best
Boom.
thing about that truck is the engine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Because
I'll
the
agree with Jeff
transmission's
on
going
that
to
one.
die.
So I think ultimately I would love to have a Peterbilt someday if I could have a truck. Be a Peterbilt with a red motor or a Cummins.
Right on.
It's all good, though. It's all
Okay.
good.
Even all your sound effects.
I guarantee
Boom.
that the Peterbilt will outlast the freight shaker and probably the Volvo. Who
Yeah.
makes Western Star?
These Volvos, you
Oh,
won't
yes.
see Volvos up here.
No, I think I've seen some Volvos up here. Not a lot of them, but I think there are some Volvos up here. Because I'm like,
Temporarily, maybe. They will never.
well,
they-
you know what, though? I was on a business trip a few weeks ago in Alabama, so that might have been where I was like, there's a lot of Volvos around here.
Yeah.
I didn't think Volvos made like big rigs, but apparently they do.
They make off-road haul trucks.
yeah.
Volvo makes a lot of things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
has
it's
anybody
like-
here seen that new Kenworth?
No.
Kenworth is up there, too.
Super. No, not here in town. It's down in the
Love it.
States. But I mean, it's like you can't even see the front wheels. You can't see the trailer wheels. It's got skirts all the way down. It's just so sleek and modern. Like it's
I used to want a
might be
Kenworth
electric, I don't
Aerodyne.
know. Have you seen any of those?
Yeah.
Oh no, I
I heard
haven't.
Tesla was kind of experimenting with some electric semi trucks. I don't know if
Hey,
that's true.
let's
but-
put the truck
Oh.
she's
Like
going
the
to burn.
bird?
Yes, exactly. The electric trucks. Have you guys? So has that been a topic of discussion up here? I'm sure it hasn't been.
It
It will never be.
will no, will not.
Not up here.
No,
It's not the right area for it.
not on the haul road.
You know, it's a case of as you're driving your diesel truck down the road, you're burning fuel and you're losing weight. Whereas the Tesla, it just stays the same weight. So
Well, and you have to realize too, like you may be hauling 110, 112, 114,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
going up these hills that are 9, 10, 11, 14% grade.
Right. Right.
14. Adigan Pass is 14.
never
I think
been down
Prospect is 14.
okay.
Oil Spill is 14.
Okay. What's the elevation when you're going through these passes? What's the elevation looking like up there?
What's the elevation? I'd have to research that.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I know it takes me 14 minutes at 100,000 pounds to go up and over Adigan Pass and come down the other side.
Ooh wee.
so
And I'm doing about 12 miles an hour.
Ooh.
13, 14 miles an hour.
What?
Adigan Pass is 4,738 feet.
Good lord.
About 5,000.
Okay. Okay.
So a
So
straight
it's about
electric
so that's a mile high.
So
Basically
straight-
about a mile high.
it's 1,000.
Yeah.
It's 1,200 feet less than a mile, man.
Yeah.
So
A 5,400
thing
right about
is
a mile.
for going up a hill and all that stuff. A straight electric truck, no. You could do a hybrid truck where you've got
Well,
a diesel providing your power and electric motors. Because if you look at all the locomotives on the train tracks here, that's how they are. Mm-hmm. You've got electric motors running them, and that big old diesel generator to power it.
So
And electric motors actually put out more power.
Well, torque, right?
I totally, and I've considered this. Like I looked into Hyliion and a few of these other companies that when I was in college, because I take college courses. I'm really weird. I take them for fun because it's just like I need to keep my mind going.
Right.
But I took a class on it, and I did a lot of research on these types of these options. But after being up there for years, a couple of years, I will tell you that when I lost my power steering reservoir, I had to makeshift something out of an oil jug, right? Mm-hmm. You lose a motor, an electric motor, you're done. Yeah. So when what we have and what we're working with now, we can parts and piece it along the way. But when it comes to something so computerized, so electronic, it really does limit your on the roadside repairs. You know what I mean? Unless you were some sort of technician, you knew a lot about the systems and you had parts and pieces.
Right, so the way the motors work,
Go ahead.
so the surface haul trucks, what brand did they have out there at Fort Knox?
What's that? What's the question?
What brand do they have at Fort Knox?
They're all cat. Yeah, a lot of them are
Okay, so those are all
bigger ones.
those
Yeah.
are all straight,
But they're not
straight
electric.
mechanical. Way back when I was in college, we were working at I was working at a surface mine. Actually, I was working in the underground portion of the surface mine, and they had 340-ton. I want to say they were Euclids or Terex, but they would be coming up that 10% grade, doing 40 miles an hour, loaded.
Wow.
Wow. I think with the electric semi trucks and the Dalton Highway, could you imagine the electrical infrastructure that would have to be implemented from pretty much Matsu up to Prudhoe Bay just to provide charging
Yeah, you
for
need
those
nuclear
trucks? I
reactors.
mean,
And then the
insane.
line of trucks waiting to get recharged.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be horrible.
Right.
Which is why I say you'd have to do like a hybrid.
Ooh.
And I was trying to
that's
find
right.
that truck.
Yeah, that's right, a hybrid.
You know, honestly, I saw it on TikTok earlier today. That's why I was bringing it up. It was just the sleekest looking thing, and then the guy was driving by, and he was like, "Oh, it's a Kenworth! It's a Kenworth!" Like he was super excited about what it was.
I
don't think it was electric, but it was really just sleek and.
I'll have to look it up. I would
Yeah.
say also, if it wasn't a Peterbilt, it would be a Kenworth. But I haven't driven a Kenworth in a while, so that's
Yeah.
why it wasn't up there on the top of my list. It's been a while.
Well, I
since
wasn't
I've
bringing
been-
that up because it was a Kenworth. I just thought it was a cool looking truck,
They're
even
good-
though it was a little
they're good.
futuristic. But
Yeah.
You know,
They seem to be
it
good
wouldn't
trucks.
survive on the Dalton Highway. It looked like the clearance on that thing was about that much.
Yeah.
No, what
And when
they-
I say that much, that's about 2 inches, just for those that can't see my.
Yeah.
pavement trucks could not do the Dalton.
No.
No, not at all.
That's a Volvo. A Volvo
Yeah.
would be that would stay out on the pavement.
Okay.
I mean, they might make one that could do it because they have a similar. I mean, they're made in Sweden. They're similar to here.
There's a company up there that had quite a few of them, and they have over the years transitioned to a different brand entirely because there's just so many parts and pieces that fit together with plastic fittings and it just falls apart. I mean, there's only so many times you can rattle down the
Ram.
road and not expect something to fall apart when it's
Right.
put together with a just a little plastic Christmas tree type fitting, and that's what those guys are kind of notorious for.
Right.
So I don't know a lot about them. I've never driven one, so I can't say for sure. But for me, I do see those that are experienced, those that have success, are not in that brand of truck. So that's all I can go off of.
Got you.
They finally gotten synchronized transmissions.
Got you.
That's the other thing you won't find on the Dalton is a automatic transmission. There's one or two.
Because you guys have got like 16 gears on that son of a gun, right?
18 is what she said.
Oh, 18? Okay.
Yeah, speed.
Yeah. So you got to go down. You got to go down to get up those
But
grades.
And I did actually, it was a really good learning opportunity. A few years ago, I worked over at a company, and they had to ship up a automatic truck, but rather than deck it up, tie it down, they hooked it to a trailer and said, okay, well, can you take this north and then we'll fly you out? And so I drove an automatic up there, one trip. And I couldn't. I had to drop my trailer at the bottom and have a different driver go pick up my trailer.
Oh, wow.
They just couldn't handle it.
It couldn't handle it. It couldn't handle it. And then going up the pass, up and over the pass, it would try to shift, but because it's so steep, it wouldn't shift fast enough.
So,
and it would,
so how far were you up?
I thought I was going to burn out.
Yes. How far were you up to where you're like, you figured out, well, yeah, I'm not going to make this. So you had to, so were you on the incline then you had to, or did you have to back yourself down?
I fortunately was going up with somebody else who had the same setup.
Okay.
And I led by his example and said, nope.
Oh, okay.
I'll leave it here.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it was a really good learning experience. And I bet you, just like that competition I did a few years ago when I got in an automatic.
I remember the competition. You're talking about it and studying for it and prepping for it down in Anchorage.
Yes.
Yep. I remember that.
I could guarantee if somebody knew how to drive that truck differently than how I did it,
Right.
you know, it might be successful, but I will say that it didn't shift fast enough. It didn't drop enough gears,
Yes.
fast enough. It was really, I wouldn't say dangerous because I was fine, but it could potentially be something that could have caused an issue for someone. So I am not a big fan of putting an automatic
Right.
truck in my way, and throwing me in an automatic and going up there. I did not like it whatsoever.
So
Gotcha.
what I meant by a synchronized transmission was, you drive your normal car, you hit the clutch, you slap it in the next gear, you let off the clutch and go. The unsynchronized old school truck transmissions, it's a case of you get up to the shift point, you put in the clutch, you put it into gear, and then you got to rev the engine up to the right thing and take a foot off the clutch.
Oh, yeah, that's old school right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's old school.
So I only use my clutch pedal to stop and start.
Yeah.
I don't use. In training, they talk about double clutching, but if you line it, I don't ever use my clutch, so I don't. Maybe I don't know much about synchronized transmissions, but when I shift, I just line up my RPMs and I go from one gear to the other. But my left foot, until I stop that truck, doesn't move. Even then,
Oh, wow.
I worked for a truck shop, just real quick, for a short time. But they trained me that way. Mm-hmm. They were like, use the clutch when you start and when you stop. Otherwise, you just make sure the engine RPMs
that the
are
RPMs
matching
are right,
the
and you
transmission,
just
and it just
slip
slides
right
right
to
in.
it. Yeah.
It just slides right in.
Exactly.
So I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I learned this when I started driving. I had a manual transmission. When I first started, I was doing the clutch and all. And by the time I graduated high school, I was to the point where I was like, I mean, once you get used to driving them, you can just throw them in. You can just throw it from one gear to another. And I was doing this without attack.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, you
So
have to listen.
you might
and-
by sound, right?
Yeah. And
It's
feel.
all gut feel.
Yeah.
But it's a case of, I may have had to drive a water truck at one of my jobs that did not have the fancy, or wasn't quite like this car, and I had not driven a manual transmission in a few years. And let me tell you, it was a pain to get that thing moving.
Wow.
However, 5 years after that, get to Afghanistan. It's like, who can drive a manual transmission? You're driving the bus.
So we good to go?
Yeah, where's the why?
Okay, so it's coming. Okay, so Tiffany Hargraves,
Yes, sir.
A.K.A. Dalton Darlin.
Yeah.
Thank you for being our fourth guest speaker on 36 the podcast.
I am honored to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so before we ask you this final question, once again, if anybody would like to find you on the World Wide Web, what are your social media go-tos? Like how do we find
So
Dalton Darlin?
YouTube is my main platform. I have a lot of larger content on there.
Yes.
Long form videos.
Yes.
I do something called Beyond the Dash, where I sit down with a driver and we look at dash cam footage.
Oh.
And we go over like, okay, what can we learn from this?
Got you. Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And we'll answer questions from a viewer and
Yes.
get it out of the comment section. And,
Yes.
I also do what I call diaries, my Dalton diaries.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just me, and I'm like, you listen.
Yes.
And he'll tell you, and you just start, okay, today is the day I'm going to start recording. And then something ultimately happens,
Yes.
just coincidentally.
Yes.
And I make
It's not scripted, though. It's not scripted.
No.
Exactly. Okay.
No,
Okay.
no. The only thing that might be potentially scripted is like I made a video on how to throw a set of chains.
Yeah. Okay. Got you.
Because I wanted to make sure that I got all the content out there.
Got you.
So that stuff, I kind of did somewhat of a script or got bullet points of what I wanted to make sure I mentioned.
Got you.
No, it's literally me in a haul road truck driving the Dalton Highway, generally by myself.
Yes.
With a GoPro
Yes.
and my cell phone, and I stop every once in a while. I get footage of stuff, and it's kind of interesting. I take for granted what I do. A lot of times, I don't think about the fact that the ice crystals glistening on the trees,
Right.
and maybe that avalanche. Like you had mentioned, where it had been, bladed and cut through. And
Wow.
I look at that and I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a good one. But
Yeah,
to somebody
yeah.
else, it's
Like
your
amazement.
reaction.
It's like wonder.
It's
like,
been
wow.
a real gift
Right.
starting this, because it actually helped me learn to really appreciate what it is that I do,
Right.
and look at it from a different perspective.
Got you.
And bring that video clip and the B-roll and all those different things I try to bring into my content, and I that's why I have the diaries.
Got you.
And I
Got you.
do a lot of shorts too, because not every trip is all that eventful. But you know what? There are some times when I see a bunch of caribou on the side of the road, and I'll stop and I'll record it.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
or something interesting will happen, and it's only maybe 30 seconds of content, but I stop and I record it, and I throw
Got
those
you.
on there too. So there's not
I
a
think next time I'm sitting on the couch thinking about watching TikTok, I'm going to go to YouTube and look up some of your stuff.
Exactly.
I
Oh yes.
appreciate
Yes.
it.
Exactly. Exactly.
I appreciate it. A lot of Last Cana and, me driving a truck. It's all truck specific. Some of my content has me as a mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
a huge part of my life,
Exactly.
But
Why wouldn't it be?
Exactly.
Right?
but I didn't know how much of that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
You
True.
know,
True.
These are
true.
my babies.
Yeah. True. You know what I'm saying? Some things you just got to keep to yourself.
And then my protection,
Yeah.
it's, so there's a
Exactly.
few things I'll throw in there.
Exactly. Okay, so it's been a good time chatting with you. However, we're going to end this how we always end it, with the final question. What is your why?
What is my why?
Yes.
Well, I tell you why I'm here today is because I absolutely enjoy good company and creating content for people to sit down and enjoy.
Got you.
My why for driving a truck is because I love the hum of a motor.
Okay.
And I love the feeling of success and accomplishment when I finish a trip.
Got you.
My why for being a mom is the next time my son says something at the age of 5 and says, well, Mom, 2 + 3 = 5. I know I'm accomplishing something. So the time I spend in putting into them is worth it.
Got you.
And my
Got you.
why for content and what I do for this, like a little side business, is to eventually find myself in a position where I can help others. So I have so many different whys and so many different parts that I could really focus on, but I would just say all of it together is just, we live every day in gratitude. Live in gratitude.
Got you.
Go forward mile by mile,
Got
step
you.
by step.
Got you. Once again, I'm Tilden.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Brandon.
Tiffany.
And this is 36, the podcast. Podcast 36, the podcast. And this is 36.